Hello, everyone. Welcome to Season 2 of TLG's Faction Chat. Tonight, I'm joined by a good friend of mine, KingChezz. Chezz, we missed you last time. I heard you went on an adventure, so how did the casting go? I wanted to give Andrada a full-time job, but I figured we'll give you a second chance and see how it turns out.
Well, I appreciate you giving me this second chance.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe even a third one. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm blessed to get this second chance. I mean, Andrada did such a good job, right? But I guess I do have this amazingly handsome face going for me, right? So I guess my job is always safe. But no, the casting went really well. I really enjoyed it. I hope I did a good job, and but I thought it was a really good tournament and a lot of fun to cast. I enjoyed the casting, and obviously it was an added bonus when Green Knight won. So that was really good.
I'm yet to see your casting, but I heard all people praising you, so it's a hell of a job.
Thanks, man.
Right. So today we're going to discuss NR. Always the weakest faction, so let's try to keep it interesting. So Chezz, what do we have in store for tonight? Who are our guests?
Yeah, so for today we're going to be joined by our very own Northern Realms expert, Mr. QuillandLance.
Former, he doesn't play NR anymore, so.
Oh, come on now.
Yeah, but he's still our resident NR expert, right?
True.
He might have expanded, but he's still our expert with NR, right?
I'm yet to face him playing Hansel, so yeah.
I don't think I've played Hansel.
and we're also joined by Team Rank Stars Lord Bushwook. How's it going, Mr. Bushwook?
It's going good, Chezzy.
It's great to have you here, man.
All right, now that everyone has been introduced, how about we get into some faction chat, Chezz? What's the first on the topic today?
Yeah, well, I think a good place to start for this show would be to find out everybody's thoughts on NR post Homecoming, what people's favorite decks are, their favorite cards, how they think NR is doing as a faction post Homecoming. I'll start with my own thoughts and views. I actually really like the NR order deck that I played. I managed to get it to 25-20 or something like that, some 25-10. It wasn't a particularly good score, but that was right at the start of the season. But I mean, I had a lot of fun with it, right? I think NR's a fun faction right now. It's a lot of fun to be had with it. A lot of engines. The order mechanic is kind of cool, if a little weak. But I really like some of the flavor in NR. I think NR's really good spot flavor-wise, because one of the problems they had pre-Homecoming was it didn't have a lot of flavor, right? It was quite kind of a bit boring. And I think they've improved on that. The biggest problem with NR right now is it's still a little weak, right? It's still the orders, especially with this control matter, it doesn't really help NR. So I think that's one of the things that they're struggling with. But as far as favorite cards go, there's a lot of cool cards in NR. They've got some of the best cards, things like Foltest Pride, which can just completely wipe a board whilst being very swingy. It's quite a cool card, right? It's kind of a cool card. You've also got that card that I have no idea how to pronounce or anything, so I won't bother, but the one that gets one charge every time a card's played, that's pretty cool. There's quite a few cool cards in NR, and I think as as far as design goes, I think it's very good. I think it's just a little weak. What about you, Beardy?
Well, I actually agree. I think and it has like some really good cards. Like if you look at Anna Stranger or Stranger, like I don't know how she's pronounced. Like she's an old elect, like which really feels good. And I think like yeah, I had like decent success, like moderate, I guess. Reached like over 25 with like some boost full test. And on the positive side, I feel like when I'm playing Anna and full test, I feel like I'm playing old Gwent in terms of like you have like so many engines and you know trying to disalign huge Giggity and a huge Scorch. So it does feel really good. And there are like some great cards, especially in combination with Faulted's Zeal ability. Like Selkirk is probably like equally as powerful as he was before, especially if you have that 3-point guy and then you can spam, you know, to have like 20-point Selkirk and then like kill whatever. Like it's a very, very nice feeling. But at the same time, I feel NI is probably, I mean, it's not probably, it is by far the weakest faction. And it's because, as you said, like this is a control meta, so engine decks don't really, you know, fare well. So it's kind of in a bad spot, but at the same time, like if they change it like somehow, like I think like for example, King Demavent, which I haven't played much, is probably going to be the best vanilla leader, and there's like definitely like high ceiling in my opinion, but overall, like yeah, it's pretty lowish faction right now. Like yeah, no doubts about that one. But it does feel great to play it. It doesn't feel great when you play against like artifact deck and then they align everything for like 20 plus epidemic. So that does feel bad. But yeah, those are my 2 cents.
For sure, for sure. How about what are your thoughts, Mr. Lord Bushwook? How are you feeling about Northern Realms?
So of the amount that I've played NR, which I've played like 200 games or something, I got to like 25 something on a list, and then at that point I kind of realized that I needed to swallow my pride and learn Squayatel because the faction just isn't great right now. And that kind of feels like a little bit of a design issue more than anything, because it's not like they can make the cards hit expected value when they all have like such high ceilings, like Tridem Infantry or like Revenant. Like if you let those cards hit like 5 for 5 or like 4 for 4 instantly, then they just have such an upside. There's no reason not to play them, and they just end up seeming like really overpowered. So like the balance at the moment seems really off because of how control heavy the meta is, but I think that's more due to like how the NR cards are designed, because they all have such high upsides and none of them actually hit expected value the second they hit the board. So it makes it really easy to control them. So I don't know. Seems a little bit weak, especially in a control meta.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on the control meta isn't really helping NR at the moment. What are your thoughts, Mr. Lance? I know you were Mr. NR before Homecoming. I know you've branched out a little now. Now, does that have anything to do with NR struggles, or?
Definitely. So I kind of stopped playing NR after the Ale nerf. I thought NR was very good. Before that, like I capitalized on kind of farming Ale decks. You know, you throw Igni in a Drog Blaze deck and you get like 50-point Ignis every game. Then after that happened and it was all control, you know, they couldn't really do much. I think NR is very much just controlled wholly by the meta. They can, you know, the whole way you play NR is just dependent on how the meta is shaping up. And I think it was just a poor design decision on their part, because they can never make engines, you know, too decent, or they'll just, you know, run train over the whole meta. Like they'll just be the utter dominant faction. And now that they're nerfing control, I'm a little bit like, I'm happy and I'm scared for NR at the same time, because, you know, I love Drog, I love control. I know control is in a bad spot, but at the same time, when I've played the engine decks, even against decks where they didn't really have much control at all, I was finding trouble getting my value out of my engines, because you build a deck full of engines, right? And then you're trying to figure out the timing to lay all these cards to actually get the value. So majority of the cards you're not going to even get value out of, because your timing and your placement of each one of these engines. So, you know, you kind of want them to remove at least some of them, because then you're not, you know, you get the value out of them. But like, I'm just worried that people will point slam. You'll spend forever to set up your engines, and then they'll just remove your big swingy engine like Volta's Pride or whatever. I kind of feel like that's where it's going to end up with NR. But, you know, who knows? We'll see.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a very fair worry. Will be interesting to see how it goes. Obviously, with some of the control elements leaving the game, I think it will help NR. But like you said, some of the issues will still be there for NR, and I don't know if it's going to be enough to make NR viable or not. But we'll have to wait and see for the patch. So, Mr. Beardy, what's the next topic of conversation for this episode?
Let me see. So basically, it's like we should continue this like why is NR the weakest faction in Homecoming, and what could be done to improve it. So, like we already touched the control meta. That's obviously like one, if not the main reason why the faction is doing so poorly. But the second reason, in my opinion, I think like leaders are pretty garbage. Like if you like, pretty much like Voltes is the only viable leader at this point. Like Ada, like she has no synergy whatsoever. Like sure, like we all played against that like cancerous deck, but like still it's too inconsistent, and like it's just very bad leader. Then like Demovent is engine leader, and like engines do not stick, so it's like super bad. And then I guess like Hansel is like potentially okay, but he only has 2 mulligans. And like I think like that's another problem in this Gwent. Leaders with most mulligans are like Crack and Voltes, like from NR. Like you really need to find your cards. So like more mulligans means like more consistency, I guess, to a degree, since there's no blacklisting. And what could be done to improve it? Like obviously, like if Aitna gets nerfed, then she will. Like NR will automatically be better. But I don't know. I think like maybe we shall wait for the grand return of Radovid, and he will make NR great again. Maybe like some cool ability or something. Like I don't know. But I think like leaders are pretty bad at the moment as well, in combination with the overall state of the game. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I can agree with that for sure. I think I do agree that NR is the weakest faction right now. There's obviously, like we touched on, the control meta doesn't help it at all. Things that could be done to improve it. I see Green Knight in the chat, and I think he makes a very good point. One thing that they could do is add some non-engine based archetype to NR. Because at the moment, pretty much all of NR's archetypes are engine based, right? So if they could easily add some sort of point spam archetype into NR.
Yeah, there's like no short win con, right? No short round win con.
Yeah, exactly. So they could add something like that into there. Like you pointed out, Raddy Daddy is supposed to be coming back at some point in the future. I am super happy about that. He was always my favorite leader, even if he was pretty rubbish at the end of open beta. He was always my favorite, and I look forward to him returning, maybe coming back with some sort of new archetype, maybe a Raddy Daddy point spam archetype would be right up my alley. But yeah, I think that's one of the things they could do to NR, because I think currently the design of the faction is fine. It's just lacking the flexibility, right? Because it is pretty much all engine based, and with control being so strong, it's really tough for NR. Whereas other factions have viable alternatives. Like for example, Monsters has plenty of. I think Monsters is possibly in a really the best spot for that, because it has a control deck, it has a big body greedy deck, it has the engine deck with Sabbath. It's got lots of different archetypes. Whereas NR does feel like you're pretty much forced into playing some sort of form of engine kind of deck. So I think that's something they could do, is maybe introduce some non-engine based archetype in NR.
All right, nice one. What's your opinion, Quill?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. It's just I don't know if I'm the only one here that thinks it's kind of weird that that Orders is kind of the base set for NR. I feel like they should have. It feels like Orders is more of an expansion, like engine thing for the most part. They don't have too many other factions, right? Like you were saying with monsters and stuff, they have so many different, you know, archetypes that they can really do. NR, it just feels like they have orders and then like some controlling cards, and it doesn't really feel like, well, it's nice that the faction has synergy. It's not nice in the right that the whole faction is just synergy. I don't know. I may be alone there, but that's just kind of my feelings. It doesn't feel like NR will kind of see the limelight until, you know, possibly the Redania expansion. But that's kind of my take on that.
And finally, Lord Bushwick, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. So I kind of agree with what Quill had to say there. Like NR definitely does seem super archetypal, kind of like how Monsters was before Homecoming came out, and like Monsters wasn't exactly in the best spot back then. Partially because like you had to just look up a tag, throw in the tag, hope the deck worked out, and if it didn't, well, feels bad. But like, I think maybe getting a little bit out of the control meta might actually be enough. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. But if there's only, you know, 3-4 cards in a deck that can deal 3 damage on like in one turn, like, you know, the officers and the BMEs and things like that, they can only remove like 3 or 4 of your, you know, lower provision engines. And then, I mean, ultimately, I think high provision engines in NR are a little bit of a trap, because if those get removed, you're trading down like by such a ridiculous amount. Like it's not like they're hard to remove in the first place. But yeah, I think out of a control meta, NR might actually be in a much better spot. Like potentially very viable. A little bit of an edgy opinion though.
So guys, we shall have to wait for a couple more days and see how it turns out. Yeah, but I guess we can all agree that control meta is probably what's like holding NR down the most. So yeah. What's next, Mr. Chezzy?
So okay, so we've got one more topic here before we move into a couple of the viewer submitted questions, and this last topic we're going to be touching on is NR seems to be focused almost exclusively around engines. In a control meta, that's obviously problematic. So 2 questions about that. First, how strong do you think NR will be once control, especially Ithne, is nerfed? And second, do you think the focus on engines is problematic for the faction? Well, I mean, we've actually covered this pretty extensively already. Maybe we should have read ahead in our show notes, huh? But yeah. No. I think we still have 1 or 2 things that we can cover on this. Obviously, the nerf to Ithne is highlighted in this question, and I think the nerf to Ithne will make a bit of a difference, right, to NR, because so Ithne, I don't think it'll make a massive difference to Ithne in general. Like it'll affect Ithne in general, but I think Northern Realms will be one of the ones where it affects Ithne more than other ones, because she'll need those pings to kill those low provision engines that Lord Bushwook was talking about, right? You quite often need those extra pings, and you can only do it in 1 round now. Ithne only has a set limit. She can only use 4 for the whole game, right? So NR with their extra number of these engines, it's going to be, Ithne is going to have to really decide which which engine she's targeting and which ones she's going to let stay on the board. And I think that will make Ithne immediately an easier matchup for NR. Now, will it be enough? I don't know, because Ithne is quite strong anyway, and obviously with 4 pings, she'll still be able to win 1 round quite easily, you would imagine. But I think that'll definitely help NR. And as far as the engine being the focus on engines being problematic for the faction, I think we've touched on this, but I think as an idea, lots of engine archetypes is good, but I think they need a little bit more variety in NR. I don't think you can have it all engine based, or otherwise, when the meta is so control heavy like it is right now, that faction becomes unplayable or very difficult to achieve good scores with, which is what we've seen this first season. It's very difficult to achieve good scores with it because it has less flexibility than other factions. So I think that's one of the issues that NR is facing with its immediate design coming off of Homecoming. How about you, Mr. Beardy?
Well, yeah, I fully agree. And as you said, I think we already like pretty much covered this. But I think, yeah, I think like Item is probably the worst matchup for Anna. So with heavy enough, she receives like Anna is like automatically gonna get much better. Because realistically speaking, I guess like Crack is the second bad matchup, unless you're playing like some like heavy boosts to deny the Wolfsbane, which is again gonna be gone. So that's another great thing. So other matchups I think like are fairly winnable. Since like you have like some really powerful cards in an arsenal, like for example like Orcus in the long round is like really scary. Like everything which would like with powerful abilities like pretty much is like easy to remove, but like with full test it's like automatically much better. So I think like NI is probably going to be better than people expect. And as far for the second part, like focus on engines, I think that's like NR's trademark. Like if you look at the old Gwent, like pretty much like NR has always been a engine based deck. Like the most popular last deck was what like Fall Test. With like Elex, which just like spiral out of control, and then before we had like Hansel, which was yet another engine deck. So I think it's just like where it should be. Like machines like kind of have the lore-wise also perspective to be in engines, right? So I think they should just keep the NR as being the most at least like engine-based deck, engine-based faction in the game. So I really like that. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Okay. And what about you, Mr. Bushwook? What do you think?
So like specifically like relating to the Ithne nerf, I think it'll make the or NR a lot better. But I don't think that alone is gonna change it. Like there's gonna be there's gonna have to be some other like probably engine heavy meta like in or engine heavy deck that's super popular for NR to actually end up being really good. But I think just Ithne getting nerfed makes it much less difficult to actually play it viably. Because like the only reason you're going to be playing, okay, that's a lie. You're actually still probably playing Ithne. It doesn't seem like that much of a nerf, in general. But the matchup definitely should be a little bit more favored now, I think.
Okay, seems good. And Mr. Lance?
So on the Ithne thing, I do agree that it will help a lot with keeping certain engines alive. So you're going to want to probably keep, one boost engine going each round. Obviously no more than that, just because she'll just be using her pings to line up the big scorches anyway. So yeah, it gives the smaller units a chance to survive, but you still look at majority of Scoia'tael's removal cards, and they'll still already kill off of most NR engines to begin with. So I'd like to see what else they're going to do about like those deploy removals. Because if they don't really do anything about that, or they don't, then the engine still, I don't think will really live for the most part too. Like they're still trading up, 3 points, 2-3 points on every bronze for the most part for a little while. So it would take a long time to still ramp up regardless. So you'd still be wanting to look at that, really long round 3, but we still haven't seen changes to Shiru or any of those other changes yet. So I'm still not 100% sold on, Ithne being the answer to our prayers, so to speak. But I do think it'll help a lot. We'll just, I guess, have to see how much.
Okay. Well, I think we're all in agreement that that the nerfs coming will help NR. We're just none of us are sure how much it's gonna help. We're not sure if NR is gonna still be viable or not. There's still gonna be some issues there. So okay. Now that we've done that, Beardy, do you want to move us on to the last part of this talk show?
Yep. So we're gonna move to a few viewer submitted questions we have, and afterwards we're gonna pick some questions from chat. So if you have anything NR related, feel free to ask, and our experts, myself included, are gonna try to answer those. So first question comes from I believe it's pronounced Hamadi, I don't know, from Team Nova. What do you think about Tick Boy? That's Hansel in a less controllish meta with one more mulligan. I was trying to come up with like some kind of a good answer, but I don't really know. Like I never really main Hansel even before, and right now I think like nobody achieved like even 25 with Hansel. So I don't think it's gonna matter much. Like even with one more mulligan. Like I saw some like wombo combos with summoning circle and like getting a Hansel target, which is that Night Witch gets boosted, right? So it definitely has potential, but I don't see it being better even with one more mulligan, unless like something like drastically changes in NR. Because we can already see that like Volta struggles already, and like if you try to do the same boosty thing, or like I don't know, like Revenant thing with Hansel, you're just playing like a worse version of it. At least that's how I look at it. So maybe I'm wrong. What do you think, Chezz?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, until very, very recently, I forgot Hansel existed, to be honest with you. I hadn't seen him, hadn't heard of him. And then I saw this summoning circle thing. I only played against it once, but luckily the one time I did play against it, it was after I'd already heard about it. So I knew about the summoning circle, and I just kept my one artifact removal for summoning circle, and it went pretty well for me. I'm not sure how good Hansel will be. His ability seems a little weird in a game that, like, the game has hardly any tutors, right? So you would imagine that his ability would be kind of good, but the cards you kind of want to tutor out aren't cards that are very strong, right? Because you want to be tutoring out like you want to be tutoring out. So the cards you want to be tutoring out are normally a bronze card, right? So you're going to be getting out bronze cards because they're the only ones you've got doubles of. But a lot of the game at the moment is running cheap bronzes, right? So you can run better golds and stuff.
Yeah, it should be like 4 provision or 5.
Yeah. So like his ability is inherently not very good because you're only pulling a bronze. Whereas somebody, obviously it is buffing it, but also your targets are going to be like engine cards and things which are likely to be removed, so you have to hope that they don't get removed, although I guess you can use it in the same turn you play the card, so I guess that's not actually a fair thing. I haven't really given it much thought, to be honest, Hansel. I assume it still won't be very good. I assume the ability is not very strong, but I'd love to be proven wrong. And obviously one more mulligan definitely helps, right? The more mulligans, the better, right? For sure. As we've seen with Homecoming, most of the leaders that are viable are leaders with more mulligans. So if you gave it one more mulligan and it was less control heavy meta, it would definitely give Hansel a buff. Would he be good enough to be run in NR? Probably not, would be my initial thoughts on that. But I'd love to be proven wrong. More variety is good for the game. So
also, I think like his model looks like so atrociously funny. Like he's just like super bad, like with the crossbow and stuff. Like it's just I had to get it one out. Like it just looks very, very bad. But yeah, apart from that, let's move on to Mr. Quill.
Yeah, the proportions on Hansel, he seems like he can fit more alongside Brewer than.
Yeah, it does look like Wolfie, right? So yeah, it just I don't know, I laugh each time I face it.
But yeah, alongside the whole summoning circle thing, I did kind of I think Hansel has these really interesting combos that you can potentially pull off. I got to explore it more as well, but I had this kind of meme thing with summoning circle. So I kind of noticed that Caldwell was a human, right? And I brought him over to my side, changed him a Drog, and then shuffled 2 10-point Kedwini Revenants back into my deck, and then just summoning circle Hansel him out for like 30-point Hansel. Obviously it was a meme, and it's super hard to pull off. But if you can even get something similar to that, where you can abuse Drog to transform a high base strength card, and then just Hansel out, that extra higher strength copy of it, you can get some cool combos like that to pull off. It's just a matter of finding one that's not as complicated as a combo to kind of pull off. So I think there's a lot of interesting thing that's done with Hemselt, and an extra mulligan will help you a lot more in achieving those. With the consistency to pull those off more. But
interesting combo. How about you, Lord Bushwook?
Yeah. So like most of the time, it feels like Hemselt in general use is just kind of a worse Foltest.
Yeah.
2 less zeal charges, 1 more base point, with like thinning utility. But like I will give that it has like these really weird use cases with like maybe the Spectre Knight, the 6-power Spectre Knight that changes a card into a base copy of that card. Or no, it retains the power, so like you can shuffle that back in and then use it like that, or like what Quill said. But like all of those seem like really memey strats and not super viable competitively. Most of the time, in general use, it just kind of feels like it would be a bad version of Foltest, and especially with less mulligans, I don't really see any reason to play him over Foltest. And I don't think that changes unless like abilities get reworked somehow.
All right, so Mr. Chezzy, let's move on to next question, shall we?
Yeah, okay, so the next viewer submitted question comes also from our Discord, submitted by our teammate Alessio, or as some of you might know him as Ultraman. His question is, what are our thoughts about Ada? She seems to lack synergy with her own faction, not really creating any real archetypes except for one control combo with Hubert, which is both RNG and inconsistent. What would make her interesting to use, or how would NR really benefit from a damage archetype? And then he goes on to say, lastly, the boost NR archetype lacks some real leader or combo when it already has a lot of potential. Neneke, Anna, some bronzes with low cost benefiting from this. How would CDPR make this viable? So I'll tackle the first thing, the Ada question. As far as the Ada bit goes, she seems to lack any synergy with her own faction, or really, yeah, I mean, she does, right? So at the moment, Ada isn't really. She's basically a bit like Woodlando, only worse, because there's not often a target for 8 value, right? It is very rare that you find something that you want to hit for 8, especially if you're running her, because you're probably running a control deck anyway. So you're gonna have less and less targets over 8. Obviously the combo with Hubert is kind of strong, but it's with a lack of thinning and stuff, it can be kind of difficult to get. Although you typically end up finding him by the end of round 3, so it's not a bad combo. But again, I mean, you need to find an 8-point target to hit. Can be difficult. I think Ada. I think if they're gonna leave Ada with the exact same ability, they need to build. They need to introduce cards that are designed around that concept. And I don't. Ada will. She'll always find. She might find an 8-point target. You might be able to find decent value off her once a match, but you'll have to be careful that you don't include cards that fight for value with her if that's the case. I think that you could get an archetype if you introduce new cards, you could get an archetype around her. But at the moment, she seems a little lost. I don't see any reason why you would run Ada. There doesn't seem to be too much support for Ada as a leader right now. As far as the boost archetype goes, some sort of real leader for it. Yeah, I mean, you could always introduce some sort of a real leader. I think the boost archetype is actually pretty strong. I think following the nerf to control, I'd like to see how it is after the nerf to control before deciding where or not what route to go down with the boost archetype. I think the nerf to control will help it. I'd like to see how viable it is after that, and then make a decision on what changes could be done to the boost archetype. But I wouldn't necessarily say that it needs any changes immediately, because I think control meta is holding it back to a certain extent right now. Yeah, what are your thoughts, Mr. Beardy?
Well, I think you summarized it perfectly. So, I think she's by far the worst NR leader. And people who got like high scores with her, they basically like abused artifacts, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to do anything with Ada, right? But yeah, I don't know. Like she's just very bad. Like you made a good comparison with like Woodland, but Woodland is just like awesome finisher, like proactive, like whatever you want. Whereas like I guess like if you snipe something which has like high value, like engine wise, or like I don't know, like Gwent or something, Ada is still like good, but he just feels bad to use a leader just to have like you know, one more combo removal at your disposal. So yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. And as far as like boost archetypes go, I think like Foltest is good enough already for that like quote unquote archetype. So I don't think like new leaders should be necessary. Like I would really love to see Redaway do something like completely you know, different than what we have so far. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, one thing you did say about Ada is she is a guaranteed answer to Siri, which is becoming more and more important, right? As the meta develops. So that is one thing that Ada does.
But isn't like a lock a much cheaper way to deal with Siri, right? So
yeah, but a lock trades down in general, right? It's kind of like a trade down most of the time. Plus, who runs locks? Like, when do you ever run a lock?
Like Dorgeries, I don't know. I faced a couple more than a couple times recently.
Yeah, maybe. All right, Mr. Bushwook, what are your thoughts on this this question?
Yeah, like this damage archetype seems not good at all. Like, kind of just seems like Hubert, or sorry, Herald Dagger, except more conditional for less points. So not really super amazing. While still being just as vulnerable to things like Scorch or whatever would take out a dagger. But like as far as the NR boost archetype goes, like that seems quite good, honestly. It's just super easy to control because everyone can put out like 6 damage in a turn whenever they want to, just because everyone has that much damage, because that's the strongest leaders right now. Ithne, Croc, Boar, Pirate Captains, BMEs, all doing damage. But other than that, the cards like hit really high value really quickly. So I think that archetype is very strong right now and probably will start to shine.
Yeah, okay. And Mr. Lance, what are your thoughts on this question?
So I've kind of like touched on this with my chat a lot. So I would have preferred to see almost Drog as more of like the NR's cursed leader. And almost to like the same effect as what he does now. Like you maybe give him 1 or 2 charges of just transform a human into a revenant or something would be really cool. An interesting different type of leader to see than just, oh hey, here's another deal 8 damage. Against the base set and having a Drog model probably would sway them away from something like that. But even maybe just giving that effect to Adder or something would have been really cool. Because like you guys said, you're almost never getting 8 damage out of that. She just seems like she was kind of thrown in there. They're like, what can we really do? But as far as the boost goes, I do love the boost archetype. I played it a ton in the PTR. Granted, it had ale and stuff, so I was able to. It felt a lot better for me then. But one card that kind of stands out to me is like Lyrian Scytheman, a card that you never see played. And you get 2 units buff and it's already meeting its 4 provisions, and then any more on that is just gravy, and you can pretty easily get it in a long round to be like 10 points. So you can have really what the boost archetype does, what other NR archetypes kind of don't, is it gives you long round points per turn, and then it also gives you very swingy plays to catch up while you set up those engines too. So yeah, I agree. I really like the boost archetype, and I hopefully we can see it kind of thrive. That's what I'm kind of more looking forward to after the patch comes, and probably want to try out first. But
yeah.
as far as like a leader goes for it, not really sure they'll ever be like a boost kind of leader. I think it's kind of just putting whatever works.
Yeah. I think as an archetype, there's several of the leaders can work for it, right? Damavand and Foltest have some sort of synergy on depending on which way you want to go with it, right? So I think it's probably fine. not having a specific leader for that archetype. So, Mr. Beardy, what do you what's next on the agenda?
I have one more user submit the question from
Okay.
Gwent 007. Pretty cool name. How much would reintroducing armor as a way of protecting engines mean for NR, and can it be done in a balanced way without making NR engines OP? I think this is actually a pretty good question, which I don't really have a good answer to. Like, if you look at the old Gwent, like basically the only engine which mattered was like Night Elect, and it was like OP mainly because Faultless would buff it by 1, and then like you couldn't kill it with the Zap. But we all face it, right? So like, I think like if and I had like this crazy I mean like any sorts of like protection armor, like it could potentially like spiral out of control as well, especially like even now like in a long round, like NI is pretty much like unbeatable unless you're playing like a full control deck. So I don't know, like this seems like you know, a task for you know, developers and all those guys in charge, not, you know, for pro players, right? But I don't know, like armor apart from like like before, like was pretty much useless, and maybe like reintroducing like armor as like another archetype would be better, just, you know, to I don't know, like have some sort of synergy in, you know, removing armor, like maybe like I don't know, like something like Troll had before, like as your potential finisher card, like +1 armor every, like all Troll, 1 armor every turn, or something of that sort. Like I don't really think you know, protecting artificially NR engines is good. At least that's what I think. How about you, Chelsea?
Okay, so I haven't really given it much thought before now, but just as I read this question, I thought a cool idea that maybe they could do, I don't know how easy or hard it would be, is that with the armor, I've heard that there's talk of them adding it to things like artifacts and stuff, right? So I was thinking, how about maybe you can add it to these engines and stuff, but then add like in a keyword to some cards that deal damage, with it being like pierce or something like that, there's only certain ways you can deal with it, armor. So not all damage deals with armor, but then you obviously you have like Frenzy Dow can still deal with artifacts, but then you have these cards that deal damage with the keyword pierce or something that can kill armor. Might be a cool little concept you could do. It'd probably make it a bit more difficult to balance and stuff. And maybe NR engines don't necessarily need, like you said, it might make them a little OP if you did that. But I mean, you can always just reduce the actual points on them, so then it takes longer for them to ramp up, but they're more difficult and they require some more like specific removal to deal with these engines. So yes, they might be a little weaker, but they're a lot more likely to stick on the board, something like that. That could work. As far as the whole armor thing goes, though, my favorite use of armor was Radovid armor back in the day when it was just a point spam mechanic. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys. I'm a huge fan of point spam, and if they wanted to bring back armor in that way and make it a way of spamming points and like an engine in itself, then I'd be pretty cool with that as well. That would probably be my favorite way of bringing back armor if I was asked how I would want to do it. But yeah, I think armor is a cool concept that could be. There's plenty of ways you can play around with armor, and it's just it's an extra thing for the game, right? It's an extra mechanic, and I think that's good, right? Provided it's not ever super OP. I think just adding it in, and even if it isn't particularly viable, it's just nice to have extra stuff. Do you want to throw it over to anyone else there?
I just wanted to say, like, the funny thing about armor before, like, side effect was like if you queue into like a weather deck, you just like auto win against like Dagon or anything of sorts. And like right now, like it's just like there's no weather, like you like, so it's like pretty much useless, right? So I don't know, like I think like that's probably another thing which, you know, if they introduce armor, then they will probably have to, you know, like I don't know, like make weather like a bit stronger, or like reintroduce more weather effects, something of that sort. You know, to kind of like balance it if those two matchups occur. But yeah, so what's your opinion, Mr. Quill?
Yeah, I don't think it'll. I mean, it probably initially upon release or whatever, it'll probably be OP because I mean that's what happens with newer stuff, or it's either OP or it's garbage. Because I think they'll introduce cards alongside it, that obviously deal with the armor, kind of like what Chez was saying. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be just an extra effect like Pierce. It'd probably just be easier just to add, cards for each faction, much like there's artifact removal that just kind of capitalizes off of armor. But yeah, because they could get really complicated with Pierce, and I think it'd be kind of cool if they did, but at the same time, I don't think they will. Adding it to extra cards because that seems like a lot of extra work. But it would be cool to see them have certain damage cards be like ranged and melee, like the ranged it goes for Pierce or something, and then like the melee it's more of like just the kind of blunt brute force damage type of thing. But again, I feel like we won't see those. It would be cool, but I think it'd be more along the lines of just having a couple extra cards to deal with it. So I don't think it'll be too game breaking giving it to engines and stuff. I think there'll obviously be cards out there just to deal with it, but that's kind of my opinion on that.
All right, cool deal. How about you, Mr. Bushwook?
I think I like the idea, except like there has to be a way to implement it that's in a balanced way. I just have no idea what it is. Because like if you just gave like one armor to every single one of NR's engines in like the current game right now, just to make them stick a little bit better, like they go from like pretty close to trash tier to like getting actually kind of all right. Because like all of them go from 3 health to effectively 4 health, and like that means using an officer and an Ithne ping, or like an archer and 2 Ithne pings, or a BME if it's the only unit on the row. And it's just a lot harder to one-shot them, and it costs more resources from any sort of control player. So because of how tight like the point spread is right now since Homecoming, it feels like just adding the smallest increment of armor, like 1 armor, even just makes the engines much better than they already are, and probably too good, but we haven't felt it, so there's no way to actually know.
Right, so Mr. Chelsea, I think you have an interesting task up ahead. We need to dig up some good questions, and like if any, right? So let's try to come up with something.
So if anybody's got any questions in chat, then feel free. I think I've got one here from our newest member of the team, Mr. Crozier. I believe this is a question. There's a question mark at the end of it, so I'm hoping it's a question for us. I haven't actually read it yet, but here we go. Do you like the design of cards like Foltest Pride / Kian in general? I have no idea. We'll have to discuss that in a moment. It does seem like they are almost a guaranteed auto win if you manage to keep them alive. Obviously, they never do, right? So they are pretty bad. But all in all, if we have an environment in which engines commonly remain on the board, do you think they should be nerfed a bit? So I know what Foltest Pride is, right? So I'll go from there. Do I think Foltest Pride sort of nerf? So if it becomes a real issue, then obviously, right, because it is one of those cards that just insta wins you a game, right? If it sticks, it'll insta win you a game. Now the upside to Foltest Pride is it's pretty easy to deal with, and because it's easy to deal with before it wipes the board, right? Because you can give it zeal, but if you can only give it either zeal or you can give it extra charges, right? You can't really give it both in the turn it's played. Therefore, it can't wipe the board in the turn it's played. Therefore, if you know it's coming, you can deal with it. The problem is when you don't know it's coming, or like Crozier has pointed out in his question, if engines end up starting becoming more viable and they start sticking, are you going to have enough removal to deal with those engines and then the Foltest Pride? Or if you don't deal with the engines, are you going to be able to win the game just by removing Foltest Pride? Which is kind of the situation that some decks are in now. Even now, the non-super control heavy decks, they do struggle against Foltest Pride, right? Some of them, they have to just decide, right, we're going to let some of these engines stick and just deal with Foltest Pride or we lose. I think that's an okay. I think it's okay. I think it would need to be monitored, but I definitely think that that things like that are okay so long as there is counterplay to them. Things like Sabrina, for example, though, obviously not on the same level as Full Test Pride, are more of an issue, right? Because there is no counterplay to Sabrina. She is literally hits the board and dies immediately because of orders and things. Whereas Full Test Pride, like I mentioned, it's very hard to get it enough charges and zeal in the turn you play it to wipe your board without there being counterplay. So as long as there's counterplay, I'm okay with it. I think, but I mean, I'd have to see how things develop. It would never be good if Full Test Pride was super viable and every game ended up in a complete board wipe from Full Test Pride, right? That's not what anybody wants to see. However, it happening when your opponent forgets to play around it, or you win the game by the fact that they did hold on to their removal but couldn't then answer your engines, I think that's perfectly fine. And I think as far as Full Test Pride goes, I think that's fine. I think it's actually quite cool. I like that. I like it.
Okay. I think with Full Test Pride and Cayenne, so Cayenne, his ability is like deal damage by the amount of charges he has and then lose 1 charge. So like if you have him at 8 charges, he'll do 8 and then he'll do 7, then he'll do 6, then he'll do 5. So that's like kind of similar to Full Test Pride in that sense. I think if those cards are capable of sticking on the board, they end up being really busted. So if we do end up in a meta where those actually can stick on the board and the opponent doesn't like, or can attempt to play around it but can't really do very much, like, I don't know, if for example they let you immune a unit and still be able to give it charges, like that obviously doesn't seem like a super great great decision. But like that's the only way I could really see those cards sticking on the board and still being able to actually be good. But then yeah, that just isn't a scenario that's going to happen. I don't think those cards are ever actually going to be able to be super viable, and they shouldn't ever really be super viable because we don't want to be in some sort of meta where cards can consistently hit, 40, 50 value at the end of every game. That sounds like, the Ithne artifact list or the Woodland artifact list with epidemics and scorches and lining everything up, and then we all hate it.
Okay, and what about you, Quill? What do you think about it?
I think Full Test Pride. See, I'm kind of torn between liking it and hating it. It's kind of that cognitive dissonance with that card. Kia and I just utterly hate the card's trash. But
savage.
I mean, it's 3 power. Its ability is really interesting, but it's 3 power. That thing is not living ever. But the thing I like about Full Test Pride is at least it's 4 power, so not everything can kill it. But then they also add whereas most people complain about the melee thing, why is it roll lock to melee if it has infinite reach? It is 3 reach, but it's roll lock to melee. I like that it's roll locked. I mean, melee doesn't really make any sense. They probably should have done it to range, since it's like a catapult, right? It should be ranged. But the roll lock is great because then you can still have other ways to remove it too. Like, it's insanely game-winning card if it lives, but then you also, if you can't deal the damage, you still have the option to lock it, obviously, and then be able to just move it off the road too. So it just adds that extra little way to deal with it. It's like another little trade-off there. So I kind of like that with Full Test Pride. But yeah, Keon, definitely interesting card, but nothing more than a meme, unfortunately. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about those 2 cards.
Well, I've been trying to find another question, but since there's none, I guess this is it, right? So it was a really fun episode. Once again, I'd like to thank my co-host Chezzy for joining me, and again, congrats on a great job on casting. So, well done.
Thanks, man. Good to be back. It's good to be back.
Maybe third chance. We shall see. And of course, big thank you to Bushwook.
Oh yeah, of course. Had a fun time.
Yeah, and our teammate, former Hansel main, QuillandLance.
Yeah, no problem. That was fun.
Yeah, with that being said, I think next week we're gonna cover ST, probably most hated faction. So it's bound to be fun. So yeah, until then, au revoir.
Cast